Good morning. This is Travis Marker. I'm with Marker Law Mediation. I'm also uh, working today with Steward Growth, a nonprofit that is interested in the elevation of individuals through personal plans and customized services that help them reach their goals. So I'm excited to be part of that. And today I've been asked to address the concept or discussion of starting businesses and how you would address business startup scenarios. So, some of the first things that I think happen when I'm engaging with individuals starting their businesses is that they work from the position of wondering um, how fast they're going to make money, or how fast is their business just going to be coming into fruition, and they sometimes are not prepared for the process of how long a business might take, how long a business might um, just take to come into fruition or come into being. And there's a lot of hard work between the idea of creating a business and the process of actually getting the business to be profitable. So I love startups. I love startup businesses. I love being able to work with ideas. I love helping people, work out those ideas and plant those systems. I come from a family that is primarily farmers, and so I see a lot of stuff that was, if I use gardening or farming as an idea, that's relevant to me because I see a lot of the pioneers that came across the plains as well as just farmers out there generally as entrepreneurs also. So it doesn't mean that you have to have an office in downtown New York in order to be an entrepreneur. You can be working from your laptop at home or your garden in the backyard or your sewing machine or your kitchen. There's a variety of ways in which a person could start a business. The first thing that um, I think people forget to do is create a plan that will actually outline ideas of this is the model that will help me be profitable. So sometimes they make a couple of mistakes. First is they overspend to to create the model. So a lot of people will allow this to happen. I mean, credit card companies encourage it. Sometimes banks encourage it. They say you have a great idea, so here's 50 grand, or here's 10 to 20 grand, or 100,000. Because we like your model, we'll let you invest in this money. The problem is that if you don't have your model figured out in some form of a working fashion, it doesn't take very long before you're just in debt. You didn't have a you may have a company, you may have a great idea, but you also have debt. And that becomes discouraging and depressing because that's not the idea that the person who starts the business wants to work under, right? You don't want to work under the stress of obligation, the stress of debt, the stress of pressure. So that is one thing that I think when you start a business, you should avoid the dilemma of creating an obligation right out of the gate that um, creates undue pressure, stress, anxiety, because you now have to pay back the loan even if you didn't make any money. And unfortunately, that's a reality. So whether that's with and depending on the contract you may have with the lenders, this could be like even a angel investors, venture capitalists, your mom and dad, the bank. There's going to be some form of accountability in relation to the funds you put into a business. So rather than do that, what I suggest people do is they grow their business at a pace consistent to the money that they're making for the business. So if you have very low overhead and it costs you almost nothing to like maybe work from home, then do that. Do not go down and acquire a brand new business or a brand new building or a brand new obligation just because you want to immediately get to sexy. You want to be able to just grow at a pace that makes sense. Now, for example, I transitioned my law office a couple different times, and one time the very first time I started, my brother-in-law had bought a building, and he says, "I'll give you rent at 200 a month." And that was very cheap rent, obviously, very awesome rent. But I also did not have any money. So even though it was tremendously awesome rent, um, I still did not, I had not thought, how do I pay my rent? The nice thing is that my brother-in-law had also started his business, so he was able to get me a public defender contract that helped with that process, so that it didn't take very long. And I'm a lawyer, so it didn't take very long for I was able to pay my rent. But another situation was I created an office in St. George, Utah, and I networked with a older attorney who said, if you manage the clients, the tenants in my building, then I will give you free rent. So then that was another option, right? I took a larger risk on another time when I started my office because I wanted to help develop a area of town that um, did not really have business, and I wanted to be able to serve this population because the population I knew needed legal counsel and needed access to legal counsel. Um, but at that point, I'd already been a lawyer for, 12 to 15 years. So I knew I could make money, and I knew that I would be able to be profitable. So I did spend, 10,000 remodeling a suite so that I could, make it look like a law office and make it, good. So that was my biggest initial transition cost, was that 10 grand to remodel a unit. Um, but I'd also had enough just kind of life experience, lawyer experience, and experience with my model as a lawyer that I knew that I would be able to overcome that investment. So that's different. Those are three different experiences in which I transitioned my office and started in different areas. If you've never started if you've never started a business, then you would want to play through some of those ideas before you incur an obligation. All right, another um, red flag that sometimes comes up is that you have a lot of people that want to um, be a part of an idea or create an idea, and they may not, but they don't necessarily have the courage to do the idea. So sometimes we get stuck in a pre-planning idea. So a pre-planning phase. So you keep designing the garden, or you keep designing the quilts, or you keep designing the cakes, or you keep designing, the model, and so you are super excited about what it looks like hypothetically, but you have not actually started it. So just like with the funding side, where clients need to come first, you also have to come up with the idea of, how do I get started? So you have to have the courage to actually do it. So, and this is very relevant even in any significant area of your life. You have to say, like, if I want to start to lose weight, or I want to be healthier, or I want to sleep better, or you have to do something that you're exercising faith in, you're experimenting on. So you have to say, well, how do I start the process? Now, I'm not saying you have to, again, go get the loan, or be rash about the starting process, but you have to do something to actually start your business. So even if you just start with business cards, like, business cards are not super um, expensive, but it takes some initiative to create a business card. It definitely takes initiative to hand out a business card. And then people want to know about your idea. So all the work you may have done in creating a plan is not wasted. But at some point, you have to start to add stories to your plan. You have to start to say, this is why I love my business. This is why I do my business. This is what I can do for you as a client. This is why I'm amazing at my business. So you have to have confidence in why you're starting the business and why you're doing the business. And usually having some form of a connection with, a passion makes it easy to start a business, because you'll love to talk about it. Um, Now, I guess this is true for extroverts. Introverts, you may not care about talking to people. So you might create a business that involves very little personal engagement, or has very little it doesn't require a lot of social engagement, but maybe you find different ways for lead generation and lead engagement. Now, I guess I just used the word lead. A lead is a potential client. It's something that you're it's a source that might produce a form of income. So that would be lead, or lead generation is the idea of doing something in your business that is helping you acquire clients. Um, so I'll those two not necessarily mistakes or cautions, I definitely recommend parties explore before they engage in their businesses. So first, don't create too many debts as you're starting your business, and don't stay in the planning phase too long while you're starting your business. Like, you have to have a balance, but have the courage to kind of get forward and be excited about, doing the thing. Okay, so then another thing that'll come up, and if you read books like Think and Grow Rich and Tony Robbins, other people, they'll talk about having a mastermind group. Now, a mastermind group may take various forms as you start a business, but the concept that you're working with when you have a mastermind group is that you're surrounding yourself with people who are interested in your success as a business. Um, this could also be an MBNI group or other social groups, or, I mean, you have your buddies that could work, but as you start to get into your model, you will start to surround yourself with people who are interested in what you do, are excited about what you do. They may be investors, they may be clients, they may be former clients, they may be former teachers, former coaches, former, like if you've branched off on your own, it might be people who've already been in the field. When I started my law practice in Ogden, Utah, I was surrounded by other lawyers who also had their own law offices. So I was able to talk to all these lawyers because they were not in group firms where they had more than one attorney. I was able to ask them individually how they were addressing marketing, how they were addressing client management, how did they find a paralegal, how did they find the documents for what they were doing. Um, I took lots of lawyers to lunch, and I gave the lawyers my business cards, because what I was told was that lawyers often get more calls than they can serve. And so they will give you all your garbage cases, all their garbage cases. So you basically would take cases that like you wouldn't do in 10 to 15 years because you wouldn't need to do them. But because you're just starting out, you need clients. So you take the cases that are not great. Now, how does that relate to, somebody who's doing a social media or a marketing campaign? Well, it means that you may not hire Coca-Cola right out the gate and be able to take on all their marketing and get a, $1 billion budget, for the marketing. So you might be helping somebody who's, a pet groomer, or you know, uh, a Tupperware salesperson, or just somebody with a much smaller budget. So another mistake that happens is that you might set your budget too high for the clients who you can actually serve, and they can actually serve you. But you need clients, because as soon as you start to get clients, you will have material to share with other clients as you are doing your consultations. You'll have something you can reference off. You have actual experience in the thing that you're doing. And so you want to be able to have clients, even if you take some clients for free. Now, I'm gonna caution against doing free work when you're starting a business. At some point, you have to have the courage to say, I do need money. Like, this does cost something. But what you also have to have is the discretion to know what that is, particularly in reference to where you're at in the profession or the thing that you're doing, and where you're at in reference to your costs. So, I like, for example, when I look at bakeries, I love bakeries. I love to visit bakeries. I consume baked goods. And I love to, find new places that have cool things. Like, for example, one of the things I have a great passion for is Zapola. This is an Italian dessert. it's like a cream puff with chocolate and or strawberries or cream pudding or exceptional. But I look at somebody who starts an Italian bakery, that takes tremendous amount of courage because they're trying to make profit on something that, at the highest value might be $3, or $4, depending on the size of the Zapola. So if you're going to sell Zapola and you're going to pay off your rent on your building and you're going to pay the people at the cash register and you're going to pay your own rent at your house and you're going to live off this, that takes exceptional amount of courage as well as volume. So if you're not actually selling the Zapola, you have a price that's too high. Like it's more important that you sell Zapola so people become addicted to Zapola. I am personally addicted to Zapola. So every once in a while, like every 30 to 60 days, I build into my life that I'm gonna go down and get a Zapola at the local Italian spot just because I treat myself and I want to and I love it and it tastes amazing. But I also walk into that Italian shop in absolute amazement that they are doing well because I realize that they are trying to run a business at a super low price point, meaning $3 to $5 a purchase for baked goods. Um, so I also anticipate as I look at that Italian bakery that it is probably not the primary source of income because it's probably impossible to make a living selling baked goods, unless they have diversified their model. So what I would anticipate is that people maybe buy goods from, the front shop, but they also have a client who they sell a volume to. So they might sell a volume to other restaurants, which in this case is true. So I ate my first Zapola at another Italian restaurant. I said, "Oh, these are amazing. Where did who makes those, or how do you make them?" They said, "Oh, we buy them down the street at this other shop." So that is another way to diversify the way you make money. Is you do not probably or most often focus on just one way in which you distribute your goods. You have as many ways as possible uh, until you come up with a couple of different streams that are very predictable, because then you'll focus on developing those streams. But initially, you might throw the net a little bit broadly just because you're trying to find the resource that's going to provide the most stable revenue for your new venture. Um, when I talk to new businesses, and even as I set up my model and as I learn from other attorneys, is that you have the product at your office that makes money, like that you create the product at your office that is like your bread and butter, pays the bills thing. And you may not like it, you may not like the thing that you create, like it just may be what happens because people are paying it and it allows you to do the things you love. So if I look at it, I have the thing that makes me money, but then I probably have other things that I do that actually provide me enjoyment, even though they may not capitalize as well, or they might capitalize less regularly as the bread and butter stuff. But I know that the way I live my life and the way I engage in my practice, I have to have diversity and I have to have the ability to um, make money doing other things because I'm not very good with doing just one thing and being happy with that. This is something that I've been told I should grow up and grow out of, but I just can't do it. I like to have many things that I do because I like the diversity of experience and the diversity of what I'm doing in my life by way of enjoyment. But I also find that it's a valuable way to do business. If you don't want to have just widgets, because you don't know if the market will change. And if that market changes and those widgets are no longer necessary, then you are left totally high and dry. Uh, like currently, like let's say that I'm this Italian bakery's only Zapola customer and I buy a billion, Zapola, but then all of a sudden one day I become gluten free. I cannot eat Zapola. I just killed that bakery. So I'm not going to take personal responsibility for that because the bakery obviously would have to diversify it if it wants to have stability. So you would want to do the same thing in your business. You want to have diversification in the way that you engage in your products and your marketing and your clients so that you are not left high and dry when the market changes. An example of this would be BlackBerry. Blackberries were the first handheld device and they did not stay on top of the market. Unfortunately, Apple was much more diversity. Next thing we know, we have iPhones and we have Samsung and Androids and everything, and now we have a different model, but we don't have Blackberries. So you want to be aware of how things are changing and also be adaptable to that diversity and engaged in the diversity so that your ship you stay afloat regardless of the market changes. All right. One of the things that I've also learned is that when I hire people, I try to hire people who will work consistent with how they work best. For me, um, I do not necessarily like to hire standard employees who just come to my office and sit at an office and just bill me for their hours. I don't find that provides incentive. I don't find that it provides efficiency. So I allow people to work remotely because it allows them to live a life they actually enjoy. As long as they get my work done, we're totally fine. Uh, I've found that decreases the amount of money I have to pay for the work, but I get better work and they get paid for what they do. I don't restrict people on what they work or how they work. I just say, this is the projects I need to get done. Can you get that done? And because they're able to also, work from home and go on a jog when they want or play with their kids when they want, there's a there's a higher value of living because of that adaptation. Sometimes when we say, I just want you to sit at your cubicle for 10 to 12 hours and get the work done, there's a whole bunch of inefficiency in that process because there's the talking around the water cooler and there's the talking about other stuff. As an employer, you're paying for that. So I find that it's valuable to think of ways in which you can get the highest performance out of the person that you're engaging with, but also they need to enjoy what they're doing. So that's totally fine. This concept comes up in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week. The idea is that you need to think about the value of your living rather than just what you pay or how you're engaging. You have to think about what's a way that you can live and still benefit by way of time, cost management, and etc. In his situation, he had created a supplement company and he felt that he had to work all hours of the day to make sure his supplement company worked. But he had created a process around his supplement company that did not really need him. So that's another valuable thing is if you are needed at your office to make money, then you haven't set it up correctly. You should be able to go on vacation and still make money. You should be able to be sick and still make money. For on the 4 hour work week, what happened was he got sick. So he had to actually take a sabbatical and he realized he did not lose any money. So he had to decide, how relevant am I to my business? How can I make myself relevant to my business? But how do I also benefit from the fact that I've created a model that doesn't necessarily require I be present all the time? So he started traveling the world, working from Belize or Argentina or other, China, Europe. Uh, and he would live in a place 30 days. He would learn a language. He would learn a area specific skill. Like he was in Brazil, and I think he learned jujitsu. When he was in Argentina, he learned how to dance there. And I'm spitballing a little bit, but it was an example of he modified his life to add more enjoyment, and he did not work, let's say, harder than his model. He made his model work for him so he could enjoy his life. So you can say to yourself, well, I don't know how I can, make Zapola without being there. Well, if you think about it and you try to, and your goal is to live a life in which Zapola are made without you necessarily being present, you can figure that out. Now, if part of your enjoyment of life is just making Zapola, then do that. I mean, I'm not saying you have to, be Tim Ferriss or work his model, but the idea is that we have to pay attention to things we're creating. But a successful business should be able to be run without you being present. And so you should set that model up so that works. You should be able to have vacation, sick time, stuff like that. All right, let me explore another idea. When you when you realize that you're in a rut, one of the things that I find of tremendous value is education. So when I first started my practice, education came from the peers that I had, the other attorneys that were in my office, the other attorneys that were in my community. I would get a lot of information from them. I would also go to continuing education seminars. So this would be standard for most professions. They have some kind of continuing education requirement. And because you have a diversity of subjects you can take in order to get that requirement, then take the ones you like. So do the things that, I mean, there's not very many family law lawyers, for example, that need to go to a family law continuing education seminar anymore. Like if you've done it 5 to 10 years, you generally have the concept of what you do, but you go to that seminar so that you can engage with other like-minded or, collaborative lawyers who would be part of your extended mastermind group, because you're finding out how things are going for them, how they're dealing with certain situations, how they're adapting to the culture and the markets that they're doing their business in. I mean, there's also just the enjoyment of engaging with similar and like-minded peers, but you are getting additional information. Oftentimes, there are also other seminars that talk about how you evolve. So they talk about how you can go paperless. Like this is not a mystery now. A lot of us, particularly with COVID, have gone paperless, have gone mobile, have gone wireless. But when I first started practicing, you had to have paper, and you had to have blue ink, and you had to have notaries, and you had to file things specifically at the courthouse. And over 20 years, that's all disappeared. You can do things by declarations. Notaries are starting to disappear. You can e-file things, you can docu-sign things. And so the lawyers who have had a hard time adapting to that model have really struggled. Um, if you're excited about adaptation and excited about how your model changes, then you should do that. Like you should be very attuned to the things that will change and be a part of how your model is changing. You will also, through that process of adaptation, be able to, hey, America. So in the process of adaptation, you will be able to stay on top of your market. So like if you can make things more efficient for clients, then you'll see that you will have more productivity and you'll have a better cost benefit analysis. One example of this is when we were in COVID, the court system wasn't able to use their buildings, but because we went virtual, then attorneys were able to work with people all over the country. So because nobody was expecting anybody to show up in person, you were able to engage with people, all over the country, and nobody was complaining about their product because it was super excited. What are your thoughts, America? You've been able to join the discussion on business startups. What are some of your thoughts?
I want to try that Italian dessert now.
It is on 24th Street in Ogden. Super good.
All right. I think you have a lot of good content here. Definitely, I second the counsel to limit your expenses when you start a business. You've got to focus on providing a service or a product that people are willing to pay for, and just start getting money for what you're doing first before you start committing to other things. I love the 4-hour work week concept, and I like to be one of those flexible employees too. I like to do my best work, and I like to do it when I have the energy and the focus to be able to work. So I would really like to see companies do more job sharing, because I think there are a lot of full-time jobs that 2 people could handle easily without much. They probably get the strengths of 2 people and really benefit from that. But I think there are a lot of really strong workers and employees that could contribute a lot, that want to work 20 hours, work a lot better for them in their lives, and they would give very high quality, good efforts and good products, and just a lot of value with more time flexibility. I think the remote switch has been very, very helpful for a lot of people, and it's eliminated a lot of those time wasters you were talking about.
Yeah.
Some people just sit at their desks and shop on Amazon and check into Facebook all day, and it makes more sense for them to be getting exercise and talking to their friends and just focusing. Sometimes when people cut the work week from 40 hours to 30 hours, they make more money.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the points that Tim Ferriss brings out in his book is that we often, if we have urgency by way of a product, like if we have, if somebody's saying I need this done tomorrow, like you get it done tomorrow. Or if you're going on vacation the next day, then you get everything done so that like you can go on vacation. But
Yeah.
if you have no time crunch to what you're doing, or you have no limitations to what you're doing, yeah, you flounder, and it's not productive, and you create time wasters because you're like, yeah, I'll get to it, but it's a good thing I'm going to get my money. I'm glad my employers pay me my money. And I think that, I mean, I was an employee obviously when I was a kid. I worked at a sheet metal shop, but and I had to bill, but I did not know what billing meant. But they said keep track of your time, which I generally thought, well, meant, I keep track of my time. But I started to get bonuses because I was working for clients for this sheet metal shop, and I was billing my time and I was getting lots of projects done, which also went towards what I do. Like I like to have diversity. So I wanted to finish the project so I could go get another one. Right. And I didn't understand. Nobody had pre-told me, or informed me, if you finish a project, you get to go do another one, and we'll also pay you more, or we'll give you a bonus. It was just more like, do your job and then but as soon as I started to catch on, if I make this money, if I make this company profitable by actually doing work that matters and they can bill, I get more money because I'm more valuable to the company. But
Mhm.
if I give people just widgets or just piecemeal work that really doesn't matter and it's going to happen forever, sometimes it's hard to be motivated about that, even if you might make more money doing a bazillion widgets, right? So
Yeah, employee engagement is huge. I've been reading a lot from Gallup. They track employee engagement, and there are a lot of employees that aren't engaged. And just why? I find that I get a lot accomplished when I'm engaged. And so, like you, I like to keep a lot of projects going at the same time. And if things get slow, add something else, because I'm just so much more productive when I'm doing things that I like. And so your whole orientation of giving people things that they're best at and people they're interested in is likely to pay a lot of benefits, even if they don't work a lot of hours. If they give you their best hours of their best work, it's the 80-20 principle. If you can get the best 20% of an employee and let them do something else for the 80%, then you really maximize your investment.
absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate there's a dilemma because sometimes when you're just starting, I know that one of the hardest things for me was delegation. And sometimes I don't want to delegate because I know I have control, I get it done, and I know that it's done, and I don't have to worry about it. So like there's less stress. But if I'm really developing my model, it does take a little bit more faith to say, can I trust myself to train? And then I have more personal freedom. Plus, um, I can build my model around people doing things they like that help me out, right? But it
Well, and
does.
I think,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just thinking, you made a really important comment about making sure that you're doing things. So instead of you just putting it at the end of your to-do list, if you can get someone to put something out there, you can adjust it, or you can fix it maybe really fast, but all the groundwork they've done giving you a first draft helps you progress, and maybe even teaches them things. If you can do some kind of a mentor model of, this is the way I want it, or you could look at it differently, they can benefit and increase their skills.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the nice thing about Steward Growth is that Steward Growth, unlike the law office, is actually building around that diversity of interests, so that anybody who comes in has been able to kind of be cross-pollinated because, if their business is network marketing or social media, then we benefit from their services. They're growing their business, but they have a personal interest specifically in the project because it's their passion. And so even though we're mentoring them and we're benefiting, they are they're doing something that gives them a passion, but they're not our client. I mean, they're not like our employee who they're just working, but they're an example of a whole bunch of people now because we can create all these divisions out of diversity, and we're basically building upon this kinetic energy of people excited to kind of build inside the model, a collaboration, or like you're saying, sharing, but nobody is necessarily feeling like they're an employee or being dominated by the employee or the employer relationship. They have a freedom because like they have their space to work in, and they're able to be productive inside that space.
And also, you made a good point about how universal this is, because if you say our model applies to everyone, and what are they most passionate about, whatever that thing is, we can help them with. If they're not passionate about something, we can help them find something to be passionate about. But almost everybody is really concerned about their lives and what they are interested in. And it gives us some momentum and some energy to move forward because they get to pick whatever that thing is.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're not being told to like do the thing you hate. Like you're saying, well, what would you like to do? What would you like? How would you find passion in the thing that you're doing? Exactly. I don't know if you've ever been stuck in a situation where one day I decided I wanted to clean my parents' garage, and I was in high school. And it was just kind of like apparently I needed something mindless to do, right? So I had nothing. It was a dead Saturday. I turned on the radio and I did a really good job. Like it was surprising how clean it was. And then a couple months later, or maybe it was 6 months or a year later, my dad, because I had done such a good job, he says, "Hey, why don't you go clean the garage?" I'm like I don't want it because I had no connection or passion about it that day, right? Like it just I had it that day, but that doesn't mean I want to do it forever. Like that doesn't mean I now want to own the garage and that's my personal like stewardship is now the garage. But I followed it that day and I did a good job. And so, but there's like that's a potential different discussion about how we create boundaries around the things we're doing and when we transition and when we're just not interested in things anymore. Like it's okay to say, yeah, this is not a good day for me to do the garage. But it's also okay to have those moments where you did something really well. I mean that doesn't mean you have to own it every time, but kind of giving into your passion and saying, I'm going to try it out. It may work out.
Another another benefit of that is if you find something that you're really interested in or good at and other people hate to do it, that's a really good way to start a business, because maybe your passion is math or your passion is organizing garages. People will love to pay you to handle that problem, and they'll pay you a lot because they don't want to do it. Taxes, like look at all the things. If someone else hates it, or if it's confusing and complex and requires a lot of depth of knowledge and experience, you just get paid a lot more for that specialty.
Particularly if nobody else wants to do it. This was an example, like you're bringing up a good point. In Australia, people have a system in which you take tests, and I believe these tests are given in like kind of the middle school, and then they're given in the high school. But if you don't get a certain test, you don't get to go to college.
Oh yeah,
So
I
I
think
mean,
it's like that too.
so people will go to trade schools because it's easier to actually get something they can be employed at.
Mm.
Well, what happened is they didn't have enough people going to trade schools because they were worried about getting into the upper grades, right? So they could go to college. And
Mm.
so some of the highest paid people at this point, and when I heard this information, maybe 20 years ago, were the plumbers, because there was very few plumbers. Like all of a sudden they became the people making the money because you need plumbers, but nobody's doing that. And so we definitely don't have to be pigeonholed into we all need to be doctors and lawyers and whatever. If you have a passion, particularly ones that people don't like to do, that could definitely be an opportunity to really hit it.
I think that's a generational problem we're hitting right now. Actually, a lot of people with good experience are retiring, or they're just aging out of the workforce, and the millennials are deciding they don't want to do those kinds of jobs. And so if we don't have immigrants, or if we don't have people that will do those jobs, they're just huge open positions that need to be filled, and they don't have people willing to get the training and do that kind of work.
Yeah. Well, like restaurants, like how many restaurants are trying to hire waitresses and, hostesses and waiters because people learned in COVID there's other ways to make money. I don't have to be a wait staff. But when you go to restaurants, people are like, why is it so slow? Well, we don't have anybody who wants to do this job.
Well, and some people just checked out and decided that working wasn't their interest. But
Yeah, no, but the point that is super important is that working may not have been their interest, but they still are doing something that provides for themselves, right? I mean, because people don't give up on, like, we didn't have a bunch of people just die, right? I mean, there were people who died from COVID, but like people just didn't give up on living. People adapted to different models that provided income in different ways than they had initially made money.
some people definitely did.
Yeah, well, it's impossible that they didn't. Like whether you know, they may have all moved into one house so that
Yeah.
people no longer had to do whatever. Like they did something in order to manage their cost benefit expenses, right? And
Oh, yeah, sure. The problem solving.
yeah, so as soon as that happens, now you realize if I was doing something I don't want to do, I don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, yeah, that was really valuable for the world, for people to say, I want to do this instead.
Yeah, because I enjoy my life more, or at least I have a more consistent living value, right? So good. Um, I had another thought that I was going to say. Oh, I think I had another experience. So I'm not a handyman person. My dad is a handyman. My brother's a handyman. My son's even a handyman.
Great.
And my son decided to bring home chickens. This is about 5 or 6 years ago. And we're like, well, what do we do with chickens? Right? Because we don't like they're cute, but they grow up, right? Like you don't just get to have cute chickens and then kill them later. Like you have to take care of them, right? And
Your son brought home the chickens?
there was a sale. He was at school and there was a sale across the street at the IFA or IGA. I think it's IFA. And yeah, he bought some chickens and took them to class and then brought them home. And then my wife's a super lover of all animals. And so next thing we know, we didn't have just two chickens that he brought home. We had 8. So we had to build a chicken coop. Well, I, not being a handyman, was like, this is not going to happen. But I realized that I had blockers about being a handyman.
Uh-huh.
Like I had an idea that there had to be a performance expectation that I needed to build the best chicken coop ever if I was going to even put a nail in a piece of, in a board.
Sure.
And somehow in that process, I realized this doesn't matter. It's a chicken coop in the backyard. Like nobody's going to
It's
come
a
see it.
fort
It's
for
a
a
fort.
grown-up.
Yeah, it's a fort. And then what was interesting is it was right during the housing boom. So we had all these houses going up and people were just leaving out huge scraps of wood.
Oh.
And I thought I could use that to build a chicken coop. And so instead of just going and buying a chicken coop and just having it kind of pre-made, I thought we can develop a chicken coop idea, right? So I did work with my dad, who's a handy person,
Mhm.
but I consciously said to myself, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's my first chicken coop. And we just slowly grabbed scrap and my wife had an idea what it should look like. So I said, we're just going to go slow and we're going to build this thing. And it was super exciting because it did gradually start to transform. I learned how to lay a thing out, how to create, you know, foundation and structure and measure. And I learned from my dad. And I clearly identified, even to my dad, who actually does the job. I said, it doesn't matter, right? Like we're just doing this thing. So it's better than a fort, but it was not, you know, it was not handcrafted by something that you would buy at like the local farm shop, right? Like it wasn't perfect, but it was actually pretty impressive because it was way bigger than the normal chicken coop, and it had things in it that you couldn't get custom, like you couldn't get at a normal place.
Mhm.
But more than anything, it just it the chickens have not died,
And you made it.
and
So
I
I've
made it.
been reading this thing about the chicken and the egg. And if you're trying to start a small business and you're waiting for things that are waiting for things and waiting for, like, you just won't get started. You've got to start and you've got to be bad at it. Before you are a good mediator, you're not a good mediator. And before you're a good builder, you're not a good builder. And if you keep on working on it, you will get there, but you have to practice.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make a bad Zapola, and then eventually somebody's going to go, "Oh, wait, that was really good."
Have you? Have you made them at home?
No, no, I'm not. That is just a luxury I want to buy because there's no way I could eat that and sustain healthy living.
Oh, if you learn how to make it, then you'll eat them all the time. Okay.
Yeah, no, but it's a good example of if you think you might like something, you definitely have to do it. Now, like for example, like writers, um, like Ray Bradbury, I didn't understand that he and Isaac Asimov and you know almost every writer, particularly unfortunately women, because they were women, which is sad, they had to write many stories, and they borrowed from the Malcolm Gladwell concept of 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you read that book with
Yeah.
the outliers? Well,
Yeah.
basically it means you have to do something 10,000 hours before you're really probably going to be good at it. And if you try to create a quotient for what that means, that is a lot of hours. Like Mozart played the piano 10 hours a day or more, like concert pianists, many hours a day, right? So it's not like it just happens. They may have an aptitude for it. They may have a propensity towards it. They may have like, acute hearing or just the ability to kind of engage with it. But to really reach proficiency, you write a lot, or you bake a lot, or you garden a lot, or you study a lot, because that's what helps you elevate, to that point.
So Einstein said, I'm not that smart. I just stick with the problem longer.
Yep.
And I asked my fencing coach the other day why we didn't have more moms fencing, because adults are really good with fencing, especially with the younger people, because the younger people are all in the physical thing, but fence is like physical chess. And so the adults that are part of the club give a lot because they think the strategy, and they have to rely on the mental game because they can't keep up with the 14-year-olds unless they do that. So it really helps the younger kids learn about the planning and the strategy and all those things to fence with older. And so I said, where are all the moms? They're all in the parking lot or dropping off their kids, and their kids are fencing. And she said, it's really hard for adults to be bad at something. So they don't want to be bad at it. And people who try a lot of new things get comfortable with being bad at something, and then they can be persistent until they get good at it.
Exactly. Yeah, the idea that failure is a problem is not healthy. That
Mm-hmm.
that if you look at failure as part of the process and not a end result or not a label, like you are not a failure, you are someone in practice, right? Like Einstein said, or not Einstein, the guy who made Edison, right? 10,000
Oh,
like parts of the process to create the light bulb, not 10,000 failures, right?
and it is important to record that information too. If you can't remember that, keeping records and retaining some kind of memory of those things that haven't worked and the solutions you found to fix problems can be really useful when you're starting a small business. If you have a notebook, I have a different notebook for every context. You can say, this is what I'm doing in marketing, this is the accounting, this is the taxes, whatever. If you keep track, then you can look back and say, this didn't work. Instead of doing it lots of times and messing it up, you can iterate up.
exactly. Well, and even as you said, marketing. My first year, I was surrounded by lawyers who um did not advertise at all, and there was lawyers who advertised a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And I spent like 60,000 in advertising my first or second years.
Wow.
And uh, I basically found I was working to pay my advertising. So then
Ugh.
so then there was a lawyer who said a lawyer's public service should be their advertising.
Mm.
And it intuitively connected with me more. And it created a paradigm shift to say, couldn't I make more money if I went out and engaged with more people?
Yeah.
And I had to challenge myself to adapt to a different model, which is actually an older model because back in the when the law first started, it was you could not advertise. The profession had to speak for itself. But what eventually started happening is large firms would dominate, and so a young lawyer really would have a hard time coming out. So they
Mm.
started to allow it, and then it just kind of like took over. So now we have billboards everywhere and all this stuff. But I thought to myself, I'm going to challenge myself to go back to the old model, but I'm not going to totally abandon the new model. So I made sure I was on every free site, which definitely new businesses should do. Like the first thing you do is you make sure you have some kind of presence on, Google, Yahoo, Bing, like every search engine, and you have something that will work in your SEO, your search engine optimization, and you study search engine optimization, or you hire somebody who actually knows it. But you find the ways that you can engage for free in the market, but you'll get the best clients, which is this is what I definitely know. You get the best clients from interpersonal engagement. Like the clients that I have relationships with, I have way better track records with referrals, continuity, longevity. All of that comes from actually engaging in a way that creates that authentic interpersonal relationship about the service rather than because it's about the experience, right? Like you have an experience inside the product that creates loyalty, like with me and Zapola, right? But even with my kids, when we talk about like I go to the grocery store, my kids are probably messed up because I say, why is a gallon of milk just under $3 and this pint of Ben and Jerry's is $5? Like, or what's happening here? Like, why would this price work? What's happening? And we talk about the fact that people are buying an experience when they buy that pint of ice cream for Ben and Jerry's. Because I can also get to Tillamook's ice cream and I get a half gallon of ice cream for $5. So, and then if I go down to the local, ice cream place, I get a cone for $5. So, and then if I don't care about it at all, I can go to, Far's Ice Cream and buy a gallon of ice cream for $5. So the question is, why do all these price points matter? Well, most of the time it relates to experience and what I'm trying to accomplish with that experience when I buy money. So people have put a gallon of milk inside the idea that I have to provide cereal for my kids every morning. This is part of my life saving providing for my kids. And it's been ingrained in us since we were, on off the farm, is people have milk for breakfast. So farmers have been forced to keep their product down through subsidies because the market says I can't pay $5 for a thing of milk. But I can pay $5 for a thing of rice milk or almond milk or whatever because I have a different priority connected to the price point, right? So some of the things you do when you're shopping with your clients or engaging with your clients is finding out what are they hoping to experience because
Mhm.
if I could pay $8 for a little thing of gelato, I it has nothing to do with salvation for morning breakfast, right? I am having an experience, and and what is that experience worth? Why will I pay $300 or $400 to stay at the downtown Sheraton? Well, I'm having an experience. Why do I go to Disneyland and pay? You know,
Don't even tell me. It's hard to hear it.
Yeah, like if I go to the amusement park and it's $70 a day, I'm paying for the experience, right? I'm not paying because it really probably costs that. But then Disneyland makes a package where if I get 3 days at an even better price, I'm buying an experience. So we have to decide if your product is inside the experience model or is it inside I need this thing. Like
Oh,
there's different ways to balance the value because like when people are in divorce, they need the service, so it may be pretty expensive. If people need a will or a trust, it may not be connected to an emergency, so
oh yeah.
they may not be willing to pay the same for that service, right?
So you made another comment that's really useful when you're starting a business, because when you listen to the customer, you can get a niche that's maybe you're providing the same kind of pet nail grooming or whatever. But if you can really focus on a certain type of customer and really meet their need just the way they want it, you can charge 5 times, you can charge 20 times the normal rate because you understand that customer. So
Correct.
you can continue to specialize, specialize, specialize until you're the attorney that does this really complicated, just like the tax attorneys or whatever. You get something really, really specialized that other people don't know, don't care, hate, whatever, but somebody needs it really badly. They sometimes they don't even care what it costs. They'll just, if you're a brain surgeon, people will pay it.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly like if they're referencing some value to it that is specialized and is connecting with them for sure. Well, we've gone an hour, so I'm excited for this. I'm grateful, for the opportunity to present with Steward Growth and to work with the Business Toolbox. We're going to be doing this program again in a month. It'll be whatever Tuesday this is at the same time. And if people have comments or questions, you can put that in the YouTube, comment section. We'll respond to those. You can also engage with us on Instagram or Facebook, and we try to answer questions and engage with people on their questions relating to businesses. So hope you have a great time.